Hello everyone, in this video I'll be ranking the best Illithid powers in Baldur's Gate 3. So the Tadpole abilities are actually quite useful. Now there is a way you can use these as a bonus action if they require an action to use, and that makes these a whole lot better. But some of them are actually really powerful and can change the way you go through combat. So I'll be covering all of these and talking a little bit about each one of them because some of them are extremely powerful to have on your builds, whereas some of them just kind of suck. So the first one we got is Psionic Overload. So what this does is it gives you 1d4 of psychic damage extra on all your attacks, but at each turn you take 1d4 psychic damage. Where the issue arises with this is if you're holding concentration on a spell, you can actually break your concentration with that damage, and I've done it before, so I don't think it's that great. On a Warlock, it will proc on every beam of Eldritch Blast, so that's an extra 3 to 12 damage. And on a Fighter, that can be okay as well if you're not going to be using any concentrations, obviously, on a Fighter. So I'll put it in the C tier because there is just better damage options here if you wanted to go that route. It can be useful, again, on a Fighter because that'll deal an extra 3 to 12 psychic damage, which is a pretty good damage type. But compared to some of the others here, it's just not as good. Next, we got Favorable beginning. So this gives us our proficiency bonus, which is either +2, 3, or 4, depending where we are in the game. Typically going to be a +4 to our attack rolls on the first turn of combat or an ability check. This is actually really good because that +4 can make a huge difference, especially if you're like a great weapon master, like fighter, paladin, etc. I'm going to put it in the A tier because that extra hit chance is huge, and also you get to use it in dialogue options, and that's really nice because any ability checks that you may be not as proficient in, you get a nice +4 to that, so very useful, honestly. And this is one that you're going to be using quite often, and it's one of the first that you can get, so I'd highly recommend getting this one. Also, if you go with the Astral Tadpole, it will refund all of these early game ones that you can select, so that is a nice benefit as well. Next, we got Force Tunnel, and I don't know about you, but I'm just not a fan of this one. Now, what it does is it pushes back all creatures 6 meters whenever you just rush straight through. As a bonus action, that's not bad for positioning. As an action, however, this kind of sucks. They don't have a save on the pushback, which is, I guess, it's one redeeming feature, is that you can just do it and maybe knock someone off the edge. But I found that this one, out of all of them, I thought it'd be much better than it was, and I end up just wasting it every time I use it. So, Force Tunnel starts with F. It's going in the F tier. I'm just not a fan. I found there's better options, especially if you're going with the Illithid powers. There's much better than Force Tunnel. Next, we got Concentrated Blast. So this is only for spellcasters. So if they're casting a spell, you can deal additional 3 to 6 psychic damage. Unfortunately, it does break your own concentration, and it has an extra bonus if you break someone's concentration. It'll heal you as much as the damage did. So it's not awesome per se, but there are some situations where you'd want to break your concentration, I guess, and maybe start concentrating on a different spell in the next turn. So for those situations, it can be okay. It's nice if you can break concentration on someone else and get the healing factor. So for that, I'll put it probably in the B tier. But this is one that you don't typically want to use often. But when it is useful, it's decently useful. So I have to put it in the B tier. Next, we have Transfuse Health. This is an interesting one. I feel like it's also one that's not one you're going to use often, but when you do, it's useful. So what this does is it sacrifices your remaining health points to heal a target for the same amount. So it can have some uses if you need to, like, panic button heal your cleric or something. So it can be useful at times, but I just feel like of all of them, you're better off throwing like if you got a bonus action to use this on, you're better off just throwing a potion probably. That's just my take on it. But yeah, I do think that this one is a little bit weaker than some of the others. So I'll probably put it in the C tier for that because there's just maybe B tier. It depends. I'll probably put it C tier just because there's so much better options here. Next, we got Stage Fright. Now, Stage Fright's interesting. What this does is targets will have disadvantage on their attack rolls, which is actually one of the best things that you can apply to someone. Disadvantage on attack rolls means that they roll 2 die and they take the lower amount. So they're going to miss their attacks more often than not. On top of that, they take 2d6 of psychic damage, so upwards of 12 damage every time they miss an attack. And they overcome the Stage Fright if they land their attack. So if done correctly, someone may just never hit you with an attack and continue to keep taking damage, which is pretty good. It's probably I would say it's an A tier one because sometimes this can be really good. And applying disadvantage on attack rolls is actually quite massive, but also applying it and dealing damage on top of that is even better. Some of the best summons in the game are the Ravens because they can inflict blind, which gives disadvantage on attack rolls, and this can do it as well, but also damage them. I think it's pretty good. Underrated, I would say. Most people don't like this because it does, like, the target could lose it and just not get affected by it, but disadvantage on the attack roll is quite nice, especially on certain targets. Next, we got Ability Drain. Now, I see a lot of people saying this is absolute trash. Ability Drain's not bad. It's actually a passive, and what it does is uses your ability score, your main ability score. If you deal damage, it lowers it by that much. So if you're a wizard using Shocking Grasp, that's going to lower intelligence. Not super useful. But if you're like a rogue dealing dexterity-based damage, that's going to lower dexterity, which lowers armor class. And also some targets, if you lower their dexterity enough, you can use ability drain, just go up and attack a few times, lower their, it only procs once per turn, but lowering dexterity means your fireballs are going to be more likely to land. It means your other attacks are more likely to land. So ability drain dexterity is actually A tier, I would say. But if you're doing like a wizard and draining intelligence, not super useful. There is a funny usage of this though, I'll tell you guys about. If you drain intelligence on withers 9 times and then use the absorb intellect, you can actually kill withers, which is kind of funny because you can normally not attack him, but that will actually defeat him. So cool little synergy. I have a video of that on my channel. But next we got the Luck of the Far Realms. Easy S tier. This is a free critical hit. This is like the Killer Sweetheart ring. So basically what this does, it gives you a long critical attack per long rest when you whenever you make a attack roll against a target. On a paladin, this is huge. I actually used this against Orin and I one-shot her with a Divine Smite. So honestly, quite powerful on the right build. Anyone can benefit really from critical hits. Some spell attack rolls will land on criticals, like Scorch and Ray, so you can hit it with that, or even a cantrip. It's very useful on martial classes, though, and in most particular paladins, because getting a critical hit on Smite is extremely excruciating of damage. So, easy S tier there. Luck of the Fire Realms is a really, really good one. Next we got Charm. Now this is interesting. This can actually be really useful in a class that might be a bit squishier, because what happens is if you get attacked, you can use a reaction to charm the target and then they won't attack you. So they do have advantage on their saving throw against being charmed, but I found more times than not this actually charmed the target. So I'm going to put it in the B tier because it can, like, if you have a teammate that's literally on the edge of dying, you can pop this up and keeping that charm on them. If a target would normally attack them 3 times, they're only going to attack them once, and then they're going to move away and potentially get an opportunity attack on them. So I would say that's B tier. Pretty powerful, if I do say so myself. Displace. I think this one's pretty garbage. So creatures suffering falling damage because your reactions take an additional 1d8 of psychic damage. So if they fall, they may take 1 to 8 damage. Not awesome because we don't have many opportunities to knock people down, and not usually if you knock them down, it's down a cliff and they just die anyways. But I'm going to put it in the F tier because I just found this one not as useful as the others. It's a passive feature, so it could go C tier, but I might put it above F in the F tier. Just not one that's super useful often unless you're knocking people off cliffs often. Like if you're a warlock with Eldritch Blast, Repulsing Blast, that's pretty good, but that's kind of a niche encounter, so I'm going to put it in the F tier. Next we got Repulsor. So push anything back 6 meters deals force damage, kind of like Force Tunnel, but with extra force damage. The only difference is they have a save on it. Repulsor's not bad, but pushing enemies back is pretty much a lot of classes actually get that with either Thunder Wave, Eldritch Blast, the Battle Master Fighter pushing attack. Like there's lots of ways to push enemies around. So I'll put it in the C tier because it could be useful. You might get a couple eliminations with that, but yeah, probably a C tier. Not the most useful of the Illithid abilities. Next we have Psionic Backlash. This is one that procs extremely often, and as an added benefit, so what happens with Psionic Backlash is it's a reaction, and you get to deal a 1d4 of psychic damage. That's not a lot of damage, but, the big but here, if an enemy is holding concentration on a spell, you can interrupt their concentration with this. So it can actually just completely shut down the enemy, and anytime you can weaponize your reaction, you want to. Getting damage on when it's not your turn is actually quite huge. Even if it's only 1 to 4 damage, if you can break a concentration with that, it's honestly quite worth it. And I would say it's an S tier for that reason. There is another one that's similar to Psionic Dominance, which I'll get to, but Psionic Backlash, it's much better than it sounds, and it can proc really often. If you're standing in the fray of things, I think it's 9 meters or 30 feet within a spell. So if you have this like on a paladin or someone that's up close in combat, you can shut down a lot of attacks that way. So I think it's really great. Next, we have Call the Weak. This is another one that is easily an S tier. The reason why, basically what happens is if you bring an enemy down, let's say you have 15 Illithid abilities, and you bring them down to 15 health, it will take out the enemy that way. So this can proc off of Psionic Backlash. So if you actually take them down to 15 health with that Psionic Backlash, Call the Weak will take them out. And then also, it'll do an explosion around them, dealing an extra 1 to 4 psychic damage. So Cull the Week's probably the best Illithid ability because you're going to see it happens often, and a little squid appears whenever you kill someone with it. So it's actually a very powerful spell overall, and one that you'll find you're going to be using quite frequently because it procs so often. It's a passive feature, but a very, very powerful one. So yeah, easy S tier. Next we got Shield of Thralls. This is basically like Rally, but you get 10 temporary health points. I mean, it's not bad. I'll probably put it in the B tier. Temporary health is always a nice thing to have, so it can be a good spell. It's a action, but it could also be a bonus action. Not the worst, but I feel like it's better than Transfuse health because you're not going to lose your own health. You're just going to heal. Temporary health was pretty good to have. And then we have next Perilous Stake. So invest in a creature that heals when it attacks, but it's vulnerable to all damage. So in honor mode, you can only apply this to your teammates, which makes it kind of not good. The way that it's actually good, you may think, hey, healing from attacks is awesome, but getting vulnerable means you're taking double damage from every source. Where this is actually really good is you can apply this to a enemy. It doesn't matter a whole lot if they heal on their attacks when you're dealing double damage. So Perilous strikes and then just go all out effort on taking them down can actually be really powerful, and I feel like there's more benefit than not. However, on honor mode, you don't get that option. You can only apply it to a teammate, which is nice to be able to heal on your attacks, but I don't think you can out heal the damage you'll take from being vulnerable to all damage types. So if you're resistant to fire, you become vulnerable to it. So not that great. But on the enemies, I would put it in the A tier because if you apply that to an enemy and just full out effort on dealing damage to it, but if you use this as a bonus action and then go in and attack a few times, it's worth its weight in gold in those situations because vulnerable is a huge status to have inflicted on the enemy. So yeah, easy A tier for that. Next we have Fracture Psych. Now this is an interesting one because it reduces the enemy's armor class by 1, and then if you take them out, you can actually cast Shatter Psych, which is the buffed up version that lowers it by 2 armor class, and then you can continually keep casting that. So Fracture Psych's not bad. It's just one that's, I feel like, underutilized and not one that you're going to use often because it does take an action, but I'll probably put it like C tier, maybe B tier. It can be useful because lowering armor class is awesome. Means you're going to be hitting your attacks more frequently, and lowering it by 2 is actually really nice. But it takes up an action or a bonus action. You could use it, I guess, as a bonus action, increase your hit chance, and then apply it to someone else next turn. So it could be useful, but I'm going to put it in the C tier. Just again, there's some other ones that are just a lot better than it, and it weighs this one down a bit. It's situational at best. Next, we have Illithid Expertise, so you gain expertise in Persuasion, Deception, and Intimidation checks, and also gives you proficiency if you don't already have it. That's really good. It's a passive, so it could be an S tier. I would say probably A tier, just because it is amazing. Getting the proficiencies in your dialogue checks is awesome because you're going to use those very, very often in dialogue, so that's a big part of Baldur's Gate 3. While it's not as combat heavy, obviously, it's just nice to have, so it could be S tier, depending on like what your build is, but easy A tier for everyone. Next, we got Psionic Dominance. So use your reaction to stop a spell from being cast using your proficiency bonus as a max level spell. So we can only stop a spell level up to level 4 from being cast, but there's actually a big glitch with this that allows us to cancel Chain Lightning of all spells, level 6 spell. So normally it's only up to level 4, but you can also, it's a bug, I'm pretty sure at this point, cancel Chain Lightning. So Chain Lightning can completely wreck your team if, let's say, there's water set up or something. So I would say Psionic Dominance is also an S tier. Just Psionic Backlash is more common. Psionic Dominance can actually be, they're both reactions, but both very powerful in their own right. Being able to stop a spell from being cast, like that's a free counter spell. That's awesome. That's honestly really awesome. So easy S tier. Next, we got Black Hole, another S tier. I just don't know. Cull the Week's probably a little bit better than Black Hole, but I want to put Black Hole in the S tier. So what this does is you summon a black hole, which sucks enemies together, and it applies slow to them. And slow is really great because it reduces armor class and dexterity saving throws by 2. They can only take an action or a bonus action. They have to choose between the two of them. And then they also cannot take reactions, and they cannot attack more than once per turn, and their spells may also be delayed in casting. So that's really good, but the big bonus is pop a black hole down, pop a Hunger of Hadar, pop a Planker Oath, they're stuck, game over, GG's, you won. Black Hole is a game winner by far. And also, I was just talking crowd control there. That doesn't even go to mention, you can pop a black hole, drop a fireball, drop a chain lightning, go in with your Berserker Barbarian and attack, cleave. You know, there's lots of usage for Black Hole. I would say that these two, some of the best abilities in the game by far. Next, we got Fly. This is another easy S tier. Being able to fly around, it uses only your movement speed. So you can kind of be smart with this and fly up on top of buildings and then use like high ground advantage. Fly is awesome. It's very useful. You can also use it outside of combat. Like in Act 3, there's a lot of rooftops that you can get into just because you can fly. So if you have one party member that can't fly, it sucks for them because they're going to be lost half the time if you're flying around everywhere. So ideally, you can get Fly on everyone. But yeah, Fly is awesome. Highly, highly recommend it. You do have to become a advanced Illithid, but I do have a guide on how to remove the Illithid appearance, so if you want to get rid of that, there's a couple easy ways to do it. So yeah. Next, we got Mind Blast. So spew forth a conical wave of psychic energy, possibly stun the target, and deals 4d8 psychic damage, plus your spellcasting modifier, so like +5 or +6 if you got charisma. Mind Blast can be okay. Stunning a target's really nice, and then you can kind of build off of the stun. It's an okay one. I'd probably put it in the B tier. Just not as useful as some of these other higher tier ones. Next, we got Mind Sanctuary. This is a cool one. So what this does is you can interchangeably use an action or a bonus action. So if you use, let's say, a Rogue Thief with 2 bonus actions, you technically have 3 actions. That's honestly really good. So A tier. What's nice about this too is you can set up a whole lot of crazy combinations because having multiple actions is massive in Baldur's Gate 3, and any chance that you can get more actions, big thumbs up for me. Could be S tier, depending on how you utilize it. I'm just going to throw in the A tier because it is extremely useful. I don't know where to rank it. Maybe somewhere's there in terms of the ranking from top to bottom. Next, we got Free Cast. This one's actually broken in a really fun way. So Free Cast allows you to cast a spell for free. That is really good. Where it gets even better, though, is if you unequipped a piece of armor and re-equipped a piece of armor, you get it again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again. Also, what's funny is if you're, let's say, Eldritch Knight, you can throw your weapon and it returns. That counts as free cast triggering. It is a bug, I'm pretty sure, but it hasn't been fixed as of yet, so maybe it'll stay in the game forever. Free cast, really nice. There's lots of ways to get free cast. Like there's amulets, there's staves that'll give it, but still, hey, the bug makes it an S tier for sure. But even without, still really good. Next, we got Absorb Intellect. As I said, this will help you if you want to take out Withers. Don't do it. I don't recommend it, but you can do it. So this will gobble up the opponent's intelligence, reduce it by 1, and then you also heal for 5 turns. It'll be 1d8, 2d8, 3d8, 4d8, 5d8. You heal a lot over time, so it is actually kind of nice. Not a lot of people like it though. I would say it's probably like B tier to C tier. Like not one you're going to use often, but the healing over time can be okay. There's not many enemies that if they lose 1 intelligence, they're going to be like, you know, that weak. So it's probably B tier at best. And finally, we got Displacer Beast Shape. This is a good one. Now, what it does is it turns you into a Displacer Beast kitty, and you get 85 health points, which is great because Druids are the tankiest build in the game because they get Wild Shape and they can heal them. It basically is free health points. This is also free health points, and you get a lot of cool attacks, and you can teleport around. You can make copies of yourself. The Displacer Beast is cool, and if you get your whole team being Displacer Beast, just like teleporting around everywhere, you can have a bunch of invisible copies or a bunch of copies of yourself. It gets chaotic, but it can also be it actually saved me. The Yurgir fight in Act 2. If I didn't have Displacer Beast shape, I would have lost. So, I guess in Act 3, I would have been completely lost. There was one time where this gave me the health that I needed to be able to survive. So, I would say it's A tier just because it's a panic button, extra 85 health, and some people don't like the wild shapes, or some people call it a weak wild shape, but 85 extra health points and being able to teleport around and attack in that shape, not bad at all. So there it is. Those are the Illithid abilities, kind of leaning heavier towards the S and A tier because as a bonus action, a lot of these are really good. Even the passives are amazing, like Illithid Expertise, Ability Drain, Fly, Cull the Weak, easily the best, Black Hole, unreal. But there it is. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I always really enjoy hearing what people think about these different abilities, and maybe there's something I overlooked with one of these, so feel free to leave a comment with your thoughts. Really enjoy reading them. Thank you so much for watching, and if you found this video fun or useful, please hit the subscribe button below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.